real quickly, a little about me. This is my family. I got a wife and 2 little kids. I got another one cooking, due in August. So a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then some point a year from now we'll have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old. I really don't know how we're gonna deal with that, but my family's great. In the end, family changes your life a lot. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about to you guys today. Any of you guys have kids, have family? You know, one? Well, I think in some ways that's your competitive advantage right now, or one of them. Something I'll talk about in a bit. But it's changed my life a lot. Obviously, they're young kids, so I haven't had them for a long time. So most of the time, what I'm going to talk about today, I thought of myself as a college kid. And I started my first company in school, and I kind of ran around still, even after I graduated, thinking I was a college kid, and walking around campus, I have to kind of remind myself I'm old and not a college kid anymore. But life moves on and will change, and I think you guys are at a really special time right now, and a really special place with what's around you, and those are some of the reasons why now is such a great time to do a company. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my story. One thing I'm really proud of is that I've helped create over 1,000 jobs for different companies that I've worked with. I went to school at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh and studied computer science there. And I was there from '94 to '99, which was a really fun time to be at school. I think now is a really fun time to be at school too. But for me, that was like the first version. Netscape was like the first web browser, and I don't even use Netscape anymore. But that was like it had come out a little bit before then. But my freshman year of school was the first year it kind of worked. Like it was really buggy before that. It's like you do things and images would load and it would really work, and it felt like the internet was being created all around me. Go talk to Bob Metcalf or somebody else like that that's here on campus now. He'll laugh at that and say that the internet was created like 30 years before that. But it was like the commercial internet. Like people were starting to do business on it and make money and do things like that. And the really cool thing about it then, which I think is also still true of many things, and especially things in technology today, is that there was nobody that was an expert at the internet, right? Because it was all just being made up. And so like I could go read up stuff on the internet about different technologies or things we were going to use, and I could work on it for a month and have as much experience as practically anybody else out there that was doing anything with it, because it was all new stuff. And so that's one reason why working on new things can be a good fit also for students and for young people, because you can have as much experience with it as somebody else. And obviously there's different kinds of experience, and there's other benefits somebody with a lot of experience might have, but you can learn a lot about something, and you can be an expert in something that's new like that. And I was able to be an expert in building web pages and setting up email systems and doing these kind of geeky other things that it wasn't even that they were that hard, it's just that they were new, and nobody else knew anything about them, and so I could go figure them out, and I could know a lot about those and help with them. And so while I was in school, I started my first company. It was called Skylist, and it was I would never have described it this way then, but looking in hindsight, it was a cloud computing company. That's the cool buzzword these days of everything's cloud computing. But it really was. It was an early hosted service business. And so if you wanted to have a list of your customers and be able to send them out an email to tell them about some new product coming out, or if you also had kind of like Yahoo, Google Groups style, like everybody being on a D list and talking to each other, and there was no Yahoo Groups or Google Groups then, so you had to set up some software package and run that. And basically what we did is we would run that on our servers and rent it out to people. And so it was just like somebody would rent a lot of other things as internet services now, except back then that was really new. There was nobody renting stuff off of websites or anything like that. And the way I got started about it, it wasn't like some big great idea. It wasn't like I had some eureka moment and was like, oh, I'm going to invent something. I'm going to go do this other thing. I got beta programs weren't free back then. Like every beta software, you go download beta software, it's always free now. They're trying to get people to try their beta when they put it out there. But back then, that wasn't the way things worked. Things weren't free. And so betas weren't open. Betas were like private and closed. You had to like apply to be on a beta program and fill out a big form and sign an NDA, and then they'd only pick certain people, and that was just kind of the way things worked. I think it's much better now, and they get a lot more feedback, but that was the way it was then. And so I was a college kid. I didn't have any money, and I was a computer science student, so I wanted software to play with, to like learn about and do stuff with. And so the only way I could get it was to go apply for beta programs and see if I could get accepted, and then get the software for free to go play with. And of course, I applied for the web server beta program for this company, and got rejected because everybody was applying for the web server program, and I was some stupid college kid, so they had no reason to let me try it out. But right next to that, when I applied, there was this email software that they were selling too, and I applied for that at the same time, just because I was applying for like anything that I could go. I had lots of time on my hands, and I was, it was some one more thing to try out. And much fewer people were applying for this one, for the email program. And so I got accepted to that. I'm sure because they didn't have enough people apply or something. And so I get accepted to this software, and now I get a link, and I can go download this email server, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with it, or what it does, or why you would use it. But I have this thing that costs $200 that to me sounds cool, so I started playing with it, and just basically set up a server and do some things with it. And they had forums, kind of like groups or chat rooms, or you might do a Facebook group today for the product. And again, I was compared to the other people there, I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I'd read the manual and I'd played with it, and I started answering people's questions on the forum. And just, as that was the only way for me to even do anything with it. And so I'd answer people's questions, and then the company kind of noticed that I was doing all the work for them, answering everybody's questions. And they were like, hey, why don't we make you an intern, and we'll pay you, and you can answer the questions, and and you can do some other custom development stuff on the side as you have time. And so then I started being an intern for them, and then their customers would call them all the time and be like, hey, we want the software to do this one thing that something that it didn't do. And they'd be like, sorry, we don't customize our software, we don't do anything like that. But then one day someone was like, hey, we don't do any of that, but we have this college kid that works for us, and I bet if you buy him some pizza, he will go do that for you, or pay him like $20 or something, right? And so they referred me to this person, and they wanted some custom thing to get done, and something I knew how to do, and so I went and kind of did that on the side. And then I realized that by going out and answering people's questions on these forums, more and more people would start asking me to do these other things on the side. And that was basically how I generated this little consulting business, was going out and answering people's questions, waiting until they asked me a hard question, and then being like, well, to that one, I know to help you with that, you got to pay me to help you with that one. That's going to take some time. I got to do something else. And it worked for me. I developed some consulting businesses. And then the way it became a hosting business is one day one of those customers was like, hey, every time my server breaks, it's like a big problem for me. It if my customers get all pissed off and it doesn't work. It wasn't even the money. It was like that he didn't want it to stop working, and that really disrupted his business. And so he was like, but from his perspective, he looked at the server I ran. He was like, your server, it just seems to work all the time. So how about instead of me calling you with urgently every time my server breaks and paying you to come fix it right now, I just pay you like $50 a month, and you just run my server on your server. You just keep it running for me, and you deal with it. And it was his idea, and I was like, that sounds like a good idea. I'm first being optimistic, thinking nothing's going to go wrong, and so I'm like, I'm just going to get paid $50 a month for doing nothing. And that was the beginning of my hosting business. And then again, same kind of thing, where I was doing these consulting projects, and then some of them would turn into hosting clients, and then I'd tell them, oh yeah, I can run your server for you too. Hey, instead of paying me to keep excuse me, to keep fixing this every time, why don't you just let me run it for you? And so that was the beginning of Skylist, and it was really great because I was in my I guess first in my dorm room, and then a room in my fraternity house, and so my parents were paying my rent. I didn't have to pay for my costs. I had my food paid for, the school meal plan or whatever, right? They had bought me a nice computer when I first got to school, and for the first stuff, I just ran it off my computer. And so I really had no cost. So anything I made was extra money. And so I could afford to just let it organically kind of grow, to just take on one client, and then the next client, and the next client, and I didn't have the startup costs that most things normally would. And then I bought the big thing was I bought a second computer. Right, and now the servers weren't all actually running on the PC that I was using to do stuff. It was running on some other server, and then it was then I bought another server, and then another server, and then there was my fraternity house room that had a bi-level split with a loft and something underneath, a bed underneath, and then my desk, and then the wall above my desk was just all servers stacked up. And of course I was also doing all of this off the school network. Because back then they couldn't even measure stuff like that, and so it was just that was obviously the easy place to start. I didn't have to go buy an internet connection or anything like that. Until I got to the point where my room was overheating, and even with an air conditioning unit in the wall, and I realized okay, this isn't going to work. And so, but the nice thing was at that point, I bootstrapped it, right? So I found a way to not have it cost me money. So by the time I needed to go really put the real investment into a real business and get a place for it to go and get our own internet connection and buy real servers and stuff like that, we were already making money. We were already it wasn't a big business, but it was big enough that it could pay for that. And so then we moved off campus. We got a little house with a bunch of my friends, and I had the basement, and the basement was the washer and the dryer, and then on one side, and then next to the washer and dryer was two big racks full of servers and a huge air conditioning unit down there, air conditioner in the basement. And then the other side of it was like my bed and couch and a TV, and I could, basically lived with the servers for a couple of years. And so that was the beginning of my first company. By the time I graduated school in '99, I thought I had the best job in the world. I was like basically living in my really right next to my fraternity, right near my fraternity house, and I made good money for a college kid, and I had a bunch of my friends working for me, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna keep doing. I'm just gonna stay here and party and stay in my live like a college kid for for a long time. I thought it was great. But that was like the peak of the dot-com boom. I was really fortunate to be graduating that year versus like the next year after it already crashed. And there was a company here in Austin called Trilogy Software, which I'm guessing none of you have ever heard of, but at the time I came here, it was really, really big. And it was an enterprise software company, and they were recruiting like 1,500 people a year that they were hiring. So it was growing really, really fast, and they were recruiting from all the best schools in the country and bringing lots of really smart people to Austin. And a friend of mine had graduated the year before me, and he had gone to work there, and he told me, he's like, it's a really great place to work. Austin's really awesome. They really are looking for entrepreneurs. They want people like you to come work in their company because they had an incubator, and they were putting $100 million into their incubator to go start all these internet businesses. So they were looking for for entrepreneurs. And so even though I wasn't really looking for a job, he convinced me to come talk to them, and I came down to Austin. Austin was really great, and Pittsburgh, in comparison, isn't so great. And I ended up meeting with the CEO, and he was like, look, I think you'll have a great experience here. You'll learn really a lot. You're gonna be surrounded by a bunch of smart people. I don't care. You've been running that other business on the side while you're going to school. You can keep running it on the side as long as you come here every day and do your thing in. Let your friends keep running that. And he basically said, come take advantage of me. He was like, come learn all my stuff, and you'll be in a way better spot to go do your own company more when you want to. And that was really great for me. That was a guy named Joe Limon. And so that's what brought me down to Austin. And then, along the way, I started another company, also pretty much by accident. In the end of 2003, they passed a national law called CAN-SPAM, and it set some basic rules for email. And as I've learned about a lot of laws, you pass laws to stop bad people from doing bad things. But as you know, it's illegal to murder people, but people still kill people. And I'm not saying there's no good use for laws. I think there's lots of good laws, but passing the law does not in itself actually stop anyone from doing anything. And what it does do a lot of times in business is you can pass a law that's designed to stop bad people from doing bad things, but creates a bunch of work for all the good people that weren't doing anything wrong to begin with, that just have to prove that they're not doing anything bad now. If that makes any sense. And it's like, if you've not heard of Sarbanes-Oxley and HIPAA and these other regulatory type things that have been passed recently, and some critiques of those are that, for example, now it costs $1 million a year to be a public company because there's all these rules you got to make sure you're following, and check boxes you got to check, and other things you got to do. And so CAN-SPAM was kind of like that. It didn't really change anything fundamental. It said if somebody wants to unsubscribe, you have to stop emailing them, and you can't be deceptive. You have to you can't say you're sending it from someone who you're not. There's a lot of things are obvious, but it also created some of those things that all the companies that were sending email were going to have to follow. We're going to have to make sure that they did things right. And so that was an opportunity for us. It was just this problem that got dumped in our lap. And at first it was like, oh no, this is going to be such a pain in the ass. How am I going to deal with this? I can't believe we're going to have to take these extra steps for each one of our customers, and every customer is going to have a different way they want to do it. It's going to be a big problem. And that problem was the opportunity for Friends Central to say, okay, well, what if everybody kind of did it the same way? What if we made one way to go follow that law, and we hosted it all in one place, and seeing that would actually just make my life easier to help my customers, but also it became its own business. And so that we kind of spun out, also kind of bootstrapped that one. Again, I didn't think anything up. I didn't have some really big, great idea. Just like a problem got dumped in my lap. And it was the obvious thing to do was to go fix it, and that was the beginning of Unsub Central. And then along the way, helped a number of other people start their companies. There's a company down in San Antonio called Rackspace. We helped them start their cloud business. Bizarre Voice is presenting a bunch of things here in town. When Brett Hurt, the CEO, was starting that company, we were chatting, we got together, and my programmers ended up basically building the first version of Bizarre Voice and getting that live and up and running while he was building his team in the process. And that was a lot of fun, and they're probably going to go public next year. That would be great. So fortunately, I got some money for what he did then, but I also got stock, like employees. So that'll be really great. And then in 2005, end of 2005, I sold both Skylist and Unsubstantial to a company called Daytrain Media that was based out of New York, and now has a big office here in Austin, which is my old office, the company that they bought from me. And they were one of our customers. It wasn't some, it's funny, you build the company. I remember I ran Skylist for 10 years, and the whole time, I would have told you that we were going to sell it 3 years from now. It was basically, that was as far as I could see. It was like to me, that was like I couldn't see farther than 3 years. So like maybe that was when that was kind of like when I saw it happening. And I had no idea that this was, I never thought that that's who we'd sell it to or that's how it would work. But they raised a whole bunch of money. Part of that was so that they could go acquire other businesses and bring certain technologies in-house. And it turned out to be a really good fit for them. And so they bought that company, and then I went to work for them for 2 years. I was their chief technology officer. And then finally, after I'd kind of done my commitment to them to help transition everything, that led me to the next company, which I'm working on now, which is called Other Inbox. And Other Inbox is another email company. And so that's my third email company. And so one thing there is, I do like email, and I know a lot about it, but for the reason why, my third one was another email one is because that was my competitive advantage. Like, I knew so much about email already. I knew so many people and I understand the technology, and I know all the people that run all the other companies, and so I have a real advantage in doing something in email again versus doing something else. What's different about it is my first couple companies all helped some of the biggest companies in the world, like Microsoft and Sony and NASCAR and Disney, to send all their email and to send us lots of different things. And Other Inbox is a service that helps all of us deal with all the crap that all those companies send and organizes all of it and cleans up your inbox for you. And so that's what I'm working on now. So, and then along the way, especially, I started before that, but especially once I sold my first company, I started working with a lot of other companies, both as an investor, as an advisor, and different ways like that. And now I'm probably involved, I think, in about 50 different companies. And there's a lot of kind of synergies between them. A bunch of them have to do with email, not all of them. But I've stock in all of those companies. And again, some of them I got more, and some of them I got less. But it helped them all in different ways, and I really enjoy doing that. I think different people invest or do things for different reasons. When I do angel investing, for me, it's not necessarily that I think like this is the best way I can get the most money back or like the best investment I can make. Like I think it will be a good investment, but it's what I really enjoy to do. It's what I think is really fun. Like I have like a certain amount of money I like set aside and give to a financial advisor and tell them like, okay, don't lose this. There's my security money. Make sure that if I get sick or something, I can take care of my family. And then the stuff on top of that for me is the stuff I go invest in companies that when I write the check, I assume it's gone. And I have no idea when or if it's ever going to come back. But that's like the price of admission for me to go be able to be involved in that company, to help them, to work with them, to do, which I really enjoy doing. I really like thinking about lots of different businesses, and I love working with new companies and new entrepreneurs that are kind of figuring out their way along. So that's a little bit about me. Other Inbox. I don't want to go too much into just because I want to get to the other part too. So you can ask me about that more if you want. But so now's your time. Now's I think totally the best time for you guys to think about starting a company. And college is a great time. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. But what it really comes down to in the end is you don't take this the wrong way, but you really don't have a life yet. As you go on, you just get more and more commitments, and both whether that's a family or groups or organizations you get involved in or other things like that. You just have more and more things that eat up your time, that take up and what your competitive advantage is right now is that you can go work harder than everybody else. And that was one of my competitive advantages when I got started. Is I worked a really lot, and I think I was smart, and I think I did a bunch of other things right too. But I also just could work longer than everybody else, than a lot of the other people that had other commitments. And I know as my life's changed now that I've got a family that's gotten a lot harder. There's a bunch of other reasons why now is a great time for you. You don't have any overhead. Somebody's paying your rent. Somebody's paying for your food. You're in the middle of university. You're never going to be in a situation like this. This is a target-rich environment. There's all kinds of other smart people around you that you can go work with or do things with. There's technologies and people building things and stuff that you can learn from. You're going to get way more leeway as a student. You can go ask anybody anything, and they'll answer you in ways that would never answer someone in business or somebody else just because you're a student. You get all this goodwill that goes with it. There's a ton of reasons why now is a great time. There's other reasons why it might be good to start a company when you're older too, but this is a great time to go do it. And you've got nothing to lose. Like, you know, like you're only gonna have more to lose when you've got it. You know, it's like when you think like, oh, I'm gonna go take a job for a while and then maybe go start a company. That's so much harder because then you're getting paid, you know, $7 grand a year, and then you're like, all right, well, do I give up this, you know, nice paycheck I'm getting right now to go take the risk of doing this other thing? Like, now's the time to go do that risk because everything's upside from here, and you can, you know, you can generally can afford to. You know, you have less commitments, you can afford to live on less, you can afford to, you're gonna get more stuff for free, you can get more leeway, and now that just makes it a really great time to go do it. And then once you do that, you know, you kind of reset all the expectations of every step beyond that. You know, your grades are important, and they're generally important for the first job that you get, but most people that I know and most jobs that you'll go after are never gonna look at your grades again after that first job. And so if your first job is that you go start a company, you just like jumped up to the top of the food chain to begin with. You know, I mean, it's not for every different situation, but for a lot of them you did. And you know, and you know, I think it'll help you even if you were to go, you know, take another job later. A lot of people are going to respect it, and it's going to push you up the chain. And you guys are here in Austin. Austin's an awesome place to do startups. It's like one of the best places in the country. There's lots of other good places too, you know, and there's great things about Silicon Valley, and there's great things about New York City. But Austin's great. Austin's awesome. And Austin is on the up and up. Austin's the rising tide. Like, Austin's where everything's coming to. Everybody's moving from California to Austin. Everybody's like, all the great energy is coming to Austin. And Austin's, you get any kind of top 10 list of the top 10 best cities for anything for the next 10 years. Top 10 best real estate markets or job markets or tech cities for startups or cities for young people or most fun cities or more, whatever it is. Austin's in the top 5 of every one of those lists. It's just it's totally one of the best places to be right now. And you know, obviously you guys are here, so you don't have to study too much on it. But it's a great place to be, and it's a great place to do startups right now. But you know, the family's a really big one. You know, like my life, it's so much harder for me right now to spend a lot of time on the stuff that I do, on entrepreneurship stuff, because my family's really important to me. I want to be around. I want to be part of the things they're doing. And like, it's only just starting to get hard. Like my 2-year-old, you know, it's like, now I can just start to go take her to the park or go do some other stuff with her, right? She's just starting to get interactive. She doesn't have like dance, you know, we actually just started dance class, but she doesn't have like, you know, soccer games or other things that she will, that I'm gonna wanna go to. And I'm gonna have 3 kids, like I'm gonna have like, you know, all kinds of stuff going on every week, besides the fact that, you know, now I wanna go see music shows or I wanna do other stuff too, right? There's all these other things pulling at me, and that's just gonna get worse and worse. And so, you know, I think that's another reason why now is a great time to go start a company. And then you also have some real other great things available to you. Capital Factory is an early stage accelerator program that I helped start here in Austin, and that's something available to anybody starting a company in Austin. Basic idea is that I just remember when I was starting my first company, there were all kinds of interesting people I could talk to and people that would give me advice, and there were lots of people who wanted me to pay them to give me advice. But the people I wanted to talk to the most were people that I thought were kind of like me, that had gone through. I wanted to talk to Michael Dell. You know, I wanted to talk to Bill Gates. I wanted to talk to somebody that I felt like had a bunch of success and had been through the steps I'd been through and had to think about it the way I was. And I'm not trying to say that I'm Michael Dell or Bill Gates, but I've got me and 20 other mentors who have all built and sold companies before. A couple of them have taken companies public. They've across a really diverse range of different things. And all of us think that for the same thing, that it's really fun to go meet with other entrepreneurs. We love talking about interesting businesses and helping them get started. And so we put together this program where we have a couple hundred companies apply. We pick 5 for each summer, and the 20 mentors all work and meet with the 5 companies over the course of the summer. We give them office space downtown, so everybody's kind of together in this really fun, you know, kind of high energy place. We give them 20 grand in cash, so they're not worried about money during the summer. They've got, you know, kind of funds to go pay their rent, to go maybe hire somebody to go test out some marketing, go different things like that. And they get all kinds of other free stuff for free. Wilson Sonsini does all their legal work for free. We have PR people to help with their PR support, accountants if they need that, all kinds of other stuff to keep their costs really low and to really then try to help them focus on the business they're trying to do and get them to move the needle over the summer. And for most people, moving the needle means either helping them figure out how they're going to get profitable so that they don't need money so they can grow on their own, or packaging up so that they can go raise money, so they can go, you know, take an investment from either angel investors or from a VC. And usually there's a bunch of packaging up you need to do, making you investable, and we can really help with that a lot. And so we've had 10 companies, we've done it 2 years, this is going to be our 3rd year this summer. We've had 10 companies come through the program. 3 of the companies have raised venture capital. Pretty much all of them are still running. And it's just been a really great experience so far. We're right now looking for more people to apply for that. And the applications are due March 20th, which is just 2 or 3 weeks away. And then we'll pick, it'll take about a month, and we'll pick the 5 companies, and then it kicks off at the end of May and runs through the summer. So that's one thing you guys have available too. And then the university has a lot of stuff here available, both through Texas Venture Labs, through different courses you can take through the ATI, the Technology Incubator. There's a bunch of different Technology Entrepreneurship Society and the Entrepreneurs Foundation, Entrepreneurs Club. There's all kinds of different groups here to work with. And then I'm putting together, who's heard of Bob Metcalf? Anybody? A couple people? Bob Metcalf just moved here. He's a new professor starting next year, professor of innovation, which you got to make up that title. When you're really, really successful, you get to come to the university and make up titles for yourself. But he invented Ethernet, which is like the plugs that you put 2 computers together with. So there's lots of pieces going to making up the internet, but he would have a strong claim towards he invented the internet. And he also, through that, started a company called 3Com, which is like the company that made all the routers that you plug the Ethernet into, which turned it into a massive global company, really, really successful. He was a venture capitalist for a couple of years up in Boston, and then he just moved here basically to retire. And he's a great guy, obviously really successful, but totally approachable, like really easy to talk to, not presumptuous in any way. He's going to be teaching next year, and then together we're putting together a course that in some ways is going to be like Capital Factory over semester, where over the course of a semester we can help to work with students to help launch their companies and bring in the mentors and do a lot of the other pieces. So those are 2 different things that that you guys have available to you now. And then one of the last things I want to leave you with is there's 2 books, both really short ones, but 2 books I really highly recommend that had an influence on me. This one's called Think and Grow Rich. It's by Napoleon Hill. It was written, I think, in the 1800s. And Andrew Carnegie, which was a really successful entrepreneur and railroad baron, or steel baron, he commissioned Napoleon Hill to write this book. He basically paid him for 25 years to go interview all the most successful entrepreneurs of the time. It was people like, Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford and Charles Schwab and all these huge names of people that you all recognize and know are really, really successful, and try to figure out what was the secret of their success and how could he pass that on to other people. And in the book, it's hard to just sum it up in one kind of sentence, but a big part of it really comes down to you're never going to be successful at these things if you don't believe in yourself, if you can't picture what that success looks like, and you can't think about it and go after it. And they use a lot of different case studies to help you see how those great people really thought about the things that they do. And I thought it was really helpful for me. And again, it's a short book that's easy to read that I really recommend. And then along the same vein, another book's called The Art of Racing in the Rain. This is a very different take on what I think is a similar topic. The first one's case studies about entrepreneurs, talking about how to be an entrepreneur. This is a little bit more about life, but it's a story about a race car driver and some things that go on in his life. But it's all told from the perspective of his dog, and his dog's his dog's perspective on being this race car driver's pet and what his owner is doing, some of the things his owner goes through. But there's a saying in there that the racer says about driving through a racetrack in the rain, and when things on a racetrack, there's a lot going on really fast, and things can be really unpredictable. And business and entrepreneurship is like that as well, right? There's some things you can control, but there's a ton of stuff happening in the world around you that you can't control, and that can really affect business and what you're trying to do. And they said, that which you manifest is before you. And what he was saying is when you're racing through the rain and the track conditions, that when you can't predict what's going to happen, but what you can predict is the things that you make happen. And so he kind of would sometimes put his car into a crazier position, or something that might have been an aggressive kind of move, but at least he knew what was going to happen. He could tell he knew the way the car that was going to slide, because he made it slide, as opposed to letting the car slide because he didn't know what was going to happen and got into a bad situation. And I feel like that's a great rule for entrepreneurship. Of you can. It's not the kind of thing where you can sit back and let it happen. You need to go out and drive the things that you want to see happen. So both those books are really easy reads, and I'd really recommend. So a couple of links: capitalfactory.com if you want to learn about Capital Factory. This website's not up yet, but it will be soon. One semester starts. That's what we're going to be doing with Bob next fall. We're looking for great entrepreneurs to participate in that program. We'll be forming teams, interdisciplinary, undergrad, graduate, across all schools. It'll have a CS curriculum number, it'll have an engineering curriculum number, and it'll probably have a McCombs number. So we're trying to make it so it's really easy for lots of people to take it and you're going to get credit for it. And then that's my blog, awesomepreneur.com.
and I'm on Twitter at Joshua Bear.
If you want to email me, I'm just josh@otherinbox.com or josh@capitalfactory.com.
And then the two books are Think and Grow Rich and The Art of Racing.